What is the goddamn deal, YouTube? It's your boy, Mark. Sorry. Wait, wrong
Mark
person.
Landis.
Oh, God, I'm fucking around. Yeah, so it's been a while since we recorded. So I think it's probably worth just checking in and seeing what everybody's up to in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks or so. I know we've gone through crazy election cycle, crazy storm, and still to this day, as of today, at least for this week, rain and flooding. But prior to that, what has everybody else been up to?
This week it hasn't stopped raining for like a month and a half.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
so
getting a little depressing.
I've done nothing but sit at home taking photos of nothing. Christian, you've done more fun things.
Yeah, I have. I just got back from Tennessee. I was over there.
You're the only 10 I see.
Wedding. And well, before actually, we haven't done a show in like 3 weeks, two and a half weeks or something like because it was my fault. It was completely my fault. I was not in Miami, and I don't really bring anything with me like to be able to do podcasts when I travel, which is probably a terrible idea. I should probably do that. But anyway, we went to Chicago first to shoot an engagement session. It was beautiful. The day we got there, it was snowing. That was kind of hard to deal with. I had to shoot in like 30-degree weather. If you guys know this, the SL2 and the Q2 are made from aluminum, which makes them blocks of ice in the cold. And you can't shoot with gloves on unless you have really, really great touchscreen gloves, which I did not have because I live in Miami and I don't have any use for touchscreen gloves. So I was basically, my hands were just frozen for like 3 hours straight. And then after that, we went to Wisconsin and it was my birthday. So we hung out there for my birthday and then came back for 2 days, one of which was election day. So I got to spend election day in Miami, which was a shit show to say the least. And then we went to Tennessee to shoot a wedding, which was awesome. Tennessee is beautiful. We were right outside of Nashville. At the wedding venue was Reba McEntire's old like property, and it was insane, dude. It was so beautiful. Like the weather was perfect and the light was perfect. Like the weather was in the 70s all day, and the ceremony was outside with like the most perfect golden light, and all the trees were like red and orange, and it was on a lake, and it was literally like one of the most magical weddings I've ever shot. It was awesome.
Rub it in.
So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Rub it in.
And then I got back to Miami and it's been raining ever since. And I've had to cancel, I'm not exaggerating, like 7 shoots this week because of this rain. Like not cancel, but postpone.
I was complaining to you guys today. Like my dog's kind of sick, so I've been staying home from work and taking care of the dog. And she wants to be outside because apparently she gets cold inside. She's been like shivering. So I'm like outside all day long with the dog. And I have my X100, my M262, my Q2, and my GR3 all with me outside because
it's playtime.
Yeah. Except the sun did not show its face at all. Like it was behind a thick layer of clouds. Like
it's so ugly outside. I don't know from, everyone that listens to us where you guys are from, but if you've ever been to Miami, it's just endless rain. This year has, on top of everything that's happened, has just been endless rain, and it's ruining everything.
You want to hear something like depressing? You know the way the sun's looked like the past 2 days where it has not shown its face?
Yes.
When I went to Paris, it was like that for the first 4 days. We did not see the sun for 4 days.
Yeah, but you're in Paris.
No, dude, it was like,
and I know that's a biased thing to say because Paris is like my favorite thing in the world. But
it was like negative 10 degrees. I had never been so cold in my life.
Oh yeah, I remember that you saying that. Yeah.
Like we packed for it. We checked the weather. They're like, oh, it's gonna be like 50 degrees. Cool. First day there, waiting to go to the Arc de Triomphe. It starts snowing. Like this is not 50 degrees.
Oh my god, dude. That's what happened. That's basically what happened to me in Chicago, dude. We got there. And I have a buddy who lives there, and I had texted him the day before, like, yo, we're going to Chicago. So then I wake up the next day to a text message, and I look at my phone all tired, and he goes, and it said, look outside. And I was like, and as soon as he said that, I was like, no. And I opened the window. I like peek over the curtain, and it's just pouring snow, dude. And I was like,
yeah. Oh, God. It's funny. Chicago apparently does that to people. When I went there, excuse me, I think it was January this year, actually. you know, it was cold and I knew it was going to be cold. But like right as I was leaving, like they were canceling flights left and right because the snow was just coming down.
Dude,
Like the
but
snow
you're
was just
talking
coming
about
down.
you're not talking about January. You're talking about October 23rd.
Fair, yeah, fair.
October
Well, I
23rd
went
is
in
when I was
June.
there.
I went in June, and like I was like, oh, it's June. I hear it's great in the summertime in Chicago, and except for one day, we did not see the sun. It was gloomy. It was cold by Florida standards. Like it's like in the 50s, like pies. It's like what the hell, man? Like this is not what I expected.
That's what we were expecting it to be in the 50s while we were there, which is cold for Miamians, but like
it's
leather
manageable.
Jacket,
Though.
you're fine.
Yeah, it's manageable.
It was freezing, bro. The girl the girl from the couple we were shooting, dude, she was straight up, her lips were turning blue. And I was like, are you okay? And she's like,
what was the connection to
fine.
Chicago? Is she from Chicago or?
No, they're from here. They're Cubans from here.
And they just wanted to go to Chicago to do it?
No, they live there.
Oh, they live there.
For work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the wedding in Tennessee was also a couple from here that just went to Tennessee, fell in love with Nashville, and then started looking at wedding venues up there, and they found that place. And man, that property really it's something. It's really.
They live here then.
They live here, yeah. They're
interesting.
The groom's a firefighter, and the girl's a nurse practitioner here in Miami.
Okay.
Awesome.
I thought it was like me looking at houses in Chillicothe and being like, damn. For the price of a 3-bedroom house in Shenandoah, I could buy an estate.
Yeah. And you'll also like be living in, how cold you were in Paris? That's nothing compared to how cold you'll be in Chillicothe.
You know how many rooms I have to be warm in? One of those houses.
That's also true. True. Touche.
You had to find me between.
You know how many fireplaces my home would have?
Exactly.
One in every room. Every room has to have a fireplace.
Like the biggest house in Miami was smaller than these things for like $600,000.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Dude. Well, all I know is it needs to get clearer here because I'm getting depressed. Like, so I don't know if I talked about this before on the show. I mean, you guys know, of course, but I brought what I guess is kind of my dream camera / forever camera lens setup, whatever. I finally got 35 cron aspherical. So
she's a beaut.
Yeah, I mean, I plan to keep it for a while, but it's been kind of depressing. It's been depressing because since I've had it, like it's been raining or I've been too busy or it's been a storm or crazy stuff and more COVID spikes. So yeah, it just needs to change quickly because, knowing me, if I keep it here and actually don't get to use it and actually enjoy it, I'm going to think something else is my dream camera and then something else. And it's going to just rotate out. So
you should think that M10 monochrome with a 90 Summilux is your dream camera.
No. I see what you're doing and it's not happening.
What's the most money I can get Mark to spend on a camera?
Same thing with I got the key too and I haven't been able to use it. I've gone out to shoot it I think one time.
You sent us the most spectacular photo of a dog I've ever seen.
Well, there we go. That's what I do. I take a picture. I'm like, look at BB's eyelash. How far I can zoom in on this thing. That's all I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
It's like 47 megapixels. I'm like 25 feet away from her, but look at her eyelash.
To be fair, I know the reason why you don't go outside is because you're Cuban. And for those of you listening or watching that are not Cuban, if you are Cuban and you go out in the rain, you will die. That is
that's probably a lot of Caribbean
grandmothers and grandfathers and parents ingrained in your brain. If you're Cuban and you get wet, you will straight up die. So the Q2 is weatherproof, my friend. You can go out there in the rain and shoot all you want.
Yeah.
I know.
I can't convince my clients to go out and get all like soaked for their photos. That's not what they want. That's not like the look.
The word is. Am I gonna get a derrame or something like that? What's the word? What do you use that when you? Like when you go into the pool if you go into the pool after like eating lunch.
You'll die. Dead.
I know.
If you shower after eating, dead.
There's a human word for it.
If you walk around the house barefoot, no socks, dead.
And then you put your purse on the floor. It's like
dead and broke.
Yeah.
Broke then dead.
Oh yeah, that's hilarious. Well, speaking of the Q, there's a new challenger has what's, god damn it, completely destroyed that joke. A challenger has arrived or appeared or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Fuck, man. Sorry, guys. I'm terrible.
Come on.
I know where it's from. I completely, it just didn't come to
car.
All right. Let me go punch an Acura Legend like 5,000 times for some extra points here. But it was some Acura, because I know, because I've been playing Street Fighter, the original stuff, recently on my Raspberry Pi whenever I got bored over the pandemic. But Zeiss has released, or finally released, that. All right, hold on. I'm gonna get it right. It's a ZX1 camera, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit offline. But it's a full frame 35 millimeter f2 Zeiss lens, obviously, with a really wacky form factor, if you will. And wait for it, it has Adobe Lightroom built in.
Well, so it runs a fork of Android. So it's an Android powered camera, which
green bubble camera.
So
man,
we had
my leg has got blue bubbles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we've shared some thoughts offline. Yeah.
We had a discussion about this, and
we'll try to make it.
Consensus is,
let's start with the good.
Yeah.
Let's start with
that's
the
fair.
Good. Okay, fine. Let's start with the good. Go for it.
All right. 35 millimeter f2. It's the lens that Mark just got calling his forever lens. Basically, it's Zeiss, so it's gonna be great optically. Like, that's a given. They're doing something interesting. The camera doesn't use memory cards. It has a built-in SSD, and I'm pretty sure it is, because it should be. Any built-in SSD will be faster than any card you could put in there. Mm-hmm. So the actual, I don't know how fast it actually does burst, but it should be able to have like a super crazy fast burst mode. I don't know if it does,
and probably not have the buffering issues. I'd assume
exactly.
It's not writing back to a card.
Yeah, well,
right? It's kind of basically dumping
too,
even an SSD will start lagging after a while.
Eventually, but it'll be longer than even like a UHS2 card or whatever.
Yeah.
And but it's probably
like
not a CFast card. I don't think it.
No, it's because there's no interface between the two.
Yeah. So right. as the person who is probably closest to tech, so to speak, although it impresses me all the time, right? SSDs typically have like a pretty high throughput. I mean, those UHS-1 cards are like 300 megabits per second or whatever. That's what they're typically rated for, give or take. Like SSDs can get into like the.
Those are like the really nice ones. The USH2 cards are the ones that you get 300 megabits per second out of, but they're the most expensive really fast, SD cards you can get before you start getting into like CF.
Sorry, not even megabits, 300 megabytes per second. So I don't know what the I think it's like you divide by 8 to kind of figure it out, whatever, as far as megabits. But basically, an SSD should theoretically get better performance based on what typical SSDs, if you're talking about SSD. But what's usually the limiting factor is like the bus, right? Like what the connection is. So the SSD could be, give you a bajillion megabits per second of throughput, but if the bus that is connected to is limited, and that's going to be your bottleneck. So we don't know anything about that, because obviously that's not really something that's probably published. I mean, we haven't really looked into it, but I would suspect that if they design it properly, that wouldn't be a limiting factor. So it should perform better than a UHS-1 card or UHS-2 card. Sorry, that's my theory on it. Without really verifying some of the information.
Okay. So point one, it's fast,
and
it should be.
And I think it's like 512 storage, like 512 gigabytes of storage.
Which is
like,
a lot.
You could do an entire trip on that. You'll be fine
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if it has anybody looked? Does it have a USB?
Like on that?
I don't remember. I have it up here.
Transfer everything
I'll
to
take a
Wi-Fi.
look at it.
That would the Q2 doesn't have any ports.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. The Q2 has no ports. Like. Look at it. There's no ports on it.
Let's do this. We're gonna do a little screen sharing thing. He's like, wait, where's my port? How does this work?
It doesn't even have a USB on it?
No, nothing. There's nothing on it.
Are you sure, bro?
Pause it. There's nothing on it.
All right, there you go. So this is the ZX1.
I'm thinking of my QP.
Yeah, that has ports.
Yeah. So We'll get into some of the other stuff, but let's think
that
about.
Looks like ass, dude.
Yeah,
That's like the most pixelated.
Yeah.
So it does. Look, here you go. Are you using dial-up?
Oh wait, it's pixelated? It's probably
no, it's good now. No, it was fine already. It fixed it.
Oh, sorry about that.
It must be SD cards.
I did. There's an option in Zoom that says optimize screen sharing for video clip. So I guess it does like some wacky stuff. Let me know if it's still crappy again, and I'll just wait until whatever.
Yeah, it looks like a Game Boy right now, but it'll get better.
Yeah, it does look. It actually looks worse than a Game Boy.
Let's see if it's getting better. I'm going to scroll a bit.
No, there we go.
There it is.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, yeah. So it does have USB-C. It's a terminal. I don't know if that's for charging now, whatever.
I would hope,
but yeah,
or it should be for
probably, battery. Dude. I feel like every camera that has USB-C, you can charge the camera through USB-C.
Yeah,
even the SL2 has that.
So let's critique a little bit because I know we talked about this, but we didn't really look. So let's be honest, none of us really looked into this well enough to like really care, right? So this is probably the first time we're seeing some of these things. Like I'm looking at the shutter speed, I'm like, that's kind of low on the mechanical shutter, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and it doesn't have electronic shutter.
Yeah, I don't see that listed. It doesn't show it. I mean, usually you'd see shutter speed, you'd have a a breakdown of like mechanical versus electronic or anything like that.
That is a problem. Okay.
Yeah, that
for
is
sure. 2000 shutter speed is definitely not fast enough.
Yeah, it has a
not for modern day camera.
Screen. Yeah, 512 memory. Apparently comes with two. I saw some video that says comes with 2 rechargeable batteries in the box. I don't know. It says 1 here.
I honestly kind of don't like the fact that it does not have a memory card slot either. Like, why would you do that?
So that goes into, I guess, since Yanni talked about the good stuff, let me add one good thing, and then we can probably jump into why I don't like it, because that's one of the things that just drives me nuts, besides the obvious elephant in the room of the Lightroom thing. So the only good thing I see about it is that I feel like they're trying to push the envelope on ergonomics. So let me see if I can get a good view of it here. That looks ugly.
Aesthetically, it's a beautiful camera. It is probably one of the most beautiful cameras design wise that I've seen, like digital cameras.
I say pushing the envelope.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, translate for our non-Hispanic viewers and me, please.
For your liking, they make the colors.
Colors exist for your liking, like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get it.
But
yeah.
Like, so the 512 internal storage is like they're trying to create a camera where you don't have to ever use anything else but the camera in your hands.
Yeah.
Everything is
I get
self-contained.
That,
you could even edit the photo on there. Yeah. But I was asking about the USB port because if the only way I thought they were going to take it to like the next level where the only way to get anything off this camera is through Wi-Fi transferring or something, which is super slow. Is this a 24 like 48 megapixel?
So that was something that came. It's 37, like 30, somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it's not nothing, right? I mean, it's high. It's not a 24. It's not a 26. It's I
could do that.
I think some of the Canons are like I think in the 30s too. So I think once you get
another
over
good thing is it has good glass on it. I mean, let's be real. Zeiss lenses are really good. And then I really like aesthetically the way that it looks. I from what I understand, I watched like 2 review videos on it. The UI is very fast and very intuitive, which is pretty cool. Like a lot of cameras are not that way at all.
So I just realized something. It has a leaf shutter, which is interesting.
Yeah,
that's
why it only goes to 2000.
Physical exposure dials.
I don't think they don't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Christian, where does the Q2 go to?
I don't know.
I feel like the X100. I'm pretty sure the X100 got up to like 4,000.
Pick up your Q2 right next to you.
your computer next to you.
All right, on the dial it goes to 2000, but
yeah, that's what I meant. Like the leaf shutter. I don't think a leaf shutter could go over like 2000.
You sure? I'm pretty sure the X100 did 4,000.
It doesn't have
like.
Let me see.
Well, the V.
Oh. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Because I remember like 8,000 being like the next stop.
Maybe once you get to the full frame size leaf shutter,
possibly. Yeah. I mean, we're nitpicking at that point. I guess I was just kind of pointing out that it's that. So I think design. I think I'm kind of curious about it.
Yeah, it goes up to 4,000th.
I think it's good to
the Q2.
This camera's garbage.
I think it's good that it's trying to fit alongside the Q and, I guess the fixed lens point and shoot. I mean, if you go on B&H, the page that I got to before, like it had the Q, the Q2, or just the Q2, the Q2 monochrome, which we can jump into a little bit, and the Sony RX1R2.
Yeah.
And I having the X100 and liking the Q and Q2, like I like the idea of like a fixed lens camera that's just like, a shooter's camera. But, downsides. Let's start with the elephant in the room. It's a computer. It's running Android, or as you mentioned, a fork of Android.
It's essentially a smartphone.
Yeah. So beyond the obvious thing that I think we talked about offline of it becoming obsolete very quickly, or at least, in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can edit on the back, like form factor wise, editing on the back of a camera like that. So every now and then I review pictures like on my phone is fine because I can hold my phone like this and, kind of twist it and turn it however I want. But if I have a camera, I wish I had
and your phone's battery lasts for like 10 hours.
Yeah. So that's another thing. The other thing I'm thinking about is the weight of it, right? Remember, it doesn't have a tilt screen, right? And I know on the X-T3, a lot of times when I'm reviewing stuff, whatever on the back, or like kind of just calling stuff, and the Fuji cameras allow you to, tweak the JPEG image like in camera, so you can't edit, right? You're not editing, obviously, but you're changing stuff. I find it very uncomfortable to hold the camera and move things around with a D-pad or even the touchscreen. So what I usually do is kind of sit the camera down on like a flat surface, tilt the screen up at an angle that I view it, and then I do what I need to do there. So I keep thinking to myself, like, I'm going to hold I don't know how heavy the camera is. Let's say a 2-pound camera in my hand, use the other hand to like mess with Lightroom. I was like, I don't see it as an enjoyable experience at all. Forget the battery life, forget the obsolete stuff. It just doesn't seem practical. It's nice to have, maybe, like, hey, cool. If you want to do
definitely
something.
not something I would use for sure.
But I'd rather the idea of like connected to, always on, connected to your smartphone or something so you can grab that stuff. It just doesn't seem practical to me. And I think where I think this camera would have been great is if they forgo just the Lightroom stuff. Leave the SSD, and that's different. Leave the design in, leave it being, whatever sensors in it and the Zeiss lens. Drop the price by, $2,000, because what is it, $6,000? Drop the price to like by $1,000 to $2,000 and compete with the Q2 and other cameras like that, and like then you have something I think that's a little bit more, reasonable, if you will, right? I just don't think the Lightroom thing of it, part of it, is practical. It's not because I think like it's cheesy. I just don't think it's practical.
The whole Lightroom thing, Lightroom mobile, or Lightroom
LRCC or whatever. Yeah.
CC, yeah. Like it's been, it's on a roadmap and it's progressing rapidly, and new features are coming in. Features from Classic are being moved over to CC, and it's becoming a very robust editing platform. But when you have Android, which if you have like a Google Pixel or a Samsung like top of the line phone, you're gonna get whatever the next version of Android is also going to work on your phone. What are the chances that maybe the next one will probably work, but like 2 or 3 versions of Android down the line are going to work on this camera? And what are the chances that whatever the next version of Lightroom CC is going to work on older versions of Android, or it's going to have some dependency that it requires the most current version or a newer version that you don't have?
Yeah.
And now how much is the camera?
$6,000.
$6,000 camera is running like a 2-year-old version of Lightroom.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and just even if they update Android
it's just like I think it goes back to what Mark said. It's just like an uncomfortable way to edit a picture.
Yeah. No, but the obsolescence thing is an important thing because we kind of knocked on the Pixie,
dude, especially more than anything, especially at the price point.
Yeah.
The camera is super expensive. It's like $6,000 or something, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not a.
And even like let's use the Pixie for example. Like if the Pixie's problem is that it needs to connect to a phone to work properly.
Yeah.
But let's just say that the camera just ran on Android, not that it had Lightroom built in.
Mm-hmm.
They stop updating Android and the camera stops getting updates. But it doesn't become
functions.
It doesn't become It doesn't become a worse camera.
Yeah.
But once Lightroom stops being updated, now you have a different version of Lightroom than what you have on like your computer or your other phone. Like it's no longer relevant. You won't want to use it anymore. So the main differentiator for this camera stops being relevant after maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know.
And this is not us thinking, you know, I mean, you said that, oh, they'll update Samsung phones, whatever. We have seen in the past Android phones, like older hardware, stop getting updates, and I mean, I can tell you just from work, like we know some of the software we have doesn't work as well on older Android phones, even if they're running newer software. So, you know, because that's tied together the way it is, I just see that being like a major problem, because you have basically a couple things, right? You have the hardware that's never going to update, right? Which is usually fine for a purpose-built device that, you know, is meant, hey, this is a camera, that's what it's doing, and nothing else, right? You can always update software to kind of fix things within the context of that hardware. But you have that to worry about. You have Adobe to worry about, because they, as you said, have a roadmap of what Lightroom CC or mobile, whatever you're going to call it, you know, will be, you know, hopes to be, whatever. And I can't imagine that they're like, all right, Zeiss, we're going to delay our development, or, you know, make sure we keep you in the loop for like the next eternity. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Android aspect, which is, hey, Android gets updates, you know, from, you know, whatever confection or freaking candy they want to go with next year, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And there comes a point, even on iOS, where they will no longer support older hardware that doesn't meet certain requirements. It's just the nature of software and hardware, right? So, you know, to your point, like it just becomes a point where like you run the risk of spending $6,000 for something that's really only fully functional for a couple of years. I don't know if it's 2 years, I don't know if it's 3 years, if it's 5, or if it's
even
3 years
Android
max.
Phones,
like
there's
max,
even Android
max.
phones that have never gotten an update. Like an Android phone that never gets an update because it's just not worth it to them because it's lesser sold hardware. I can't imagine a version of Android that's going to sell less than this camera.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be the worst selling Android product by design.
I mean, I think this is cameras. At the end of the day, I think Zeiss fucked it up. It's gonna be a huge flop.
Yeah, I don't think they intend to sell a ton of these. Dude? I think they intended to get people to talk about Zeiss and make them relevant again in that sense, because they're still making lenses for other systems. They have,
but dude,
their Sony systems. They make
like a. Go for it. Sorry.
Like they have like their Leica lenses, their Sony lenses. They have a big market of other things they sell. This is just, let's make a camera. Let's get people talking. And people are talking about it because it's that different.
Yeah.
I just think they should have gone with like a nice rangefinder to compete with an M.
That would have been interesting. I mean, you know, they have made the Zeiss icon. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Like a,
you know, like
a digital Zeiss icon.
That's a good point. You know, it would have been. So basically, what the Pixie should have been, right? We're going back to the Pixie, but we hope the Pixie would have been like an alternative, but having like a name like Zeiss, where it's like, cool, it's not Leica because, you know, it's not like Leica, like a name, sorry, like Leica. Mm-hmm. But having that option, having Zeiss optics, you know, probably just making the M mount because, hey, you can use Zeiss, you know, M lenses on here and not going crazy. And I wonder if that's probably what happened. I can't imagine that's what it is, right? I mean, no. They wouldn't be cannibalizing if they made an M mount camera. They'd be cannibalizing, Leica. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But
like, I'm pretty sure they still sell the icon, like the film Zeiss. I think it's still sold.
Really?
Just like the Voigtlanders R2,
the Bessa
or whatever.
Yeah, the Bessa R2. Yeah. I didn't know that either of them are still being sold. That's cool.
The Voigtlander is for sure.
Should have just bought one of those. Screw an M6.
I was considering it at one point. So now that we've bashed this Zeiss camera for a while and we've talked about obsolete cameras like the Pixies, do you guys think that any digital camera could be a forever camera, sort of the way people talk about the M6?
I do. I think as long as they make batteries, as long as camera techs have like accessibility to spare parts and be able to like fix them themselves and not have, for example, I mean, my choice is pretty obvious that it's going to be a Leica. I'd probably go with a Q or Q2. I just don't see why you would need more than that. But, you know, Leica is going to come out with something better and more expensive, and eventually they're going to stop support for it. So I think it just comes down to that.
I think, like, all right, well, you answered the question pretty literally. Like, There's still batteries. The camera still turns on, still takes photos. It could be fixed. But the thing with digital cameras, like, this thing, for like 5 years, I've had this X100. I can still use it. It still works fine. It works as good as the day I got it. But it doesn't have like the eye detect autofocus. It's super slow to focus. It has like a horrible buffer. It's 16 megapixel. It doesn't compare in any way, shape, or form to any other camera I have. So yeah, it still works and I still use it. I actually just bought brand new batteries for it right now. So maybe I could use it for another 5 years. But it's not a camera I could use in 20 years and I'll be like, wow, this thing still takes great photos. Like I still love this thing.
I think so. I before you mentioned it earlier offline, I actually was thinking about it because when I was joking to you guys that I was going to get a Q2, I kept thinking to myself, like, is an M10 the right camera to have for a long time? And I was like, most of what I shoot would probably be better served by a Q2, which is where that thought came from. And I thought to myself, I was like, no, I think if anything today, digital cameras, like a camera like a Leica, digital Leica really is probably the camera that would make the most sense, because beyond the image sensor performance, the rest of it is just bare bones. It's like a film camera where like it kind of doesn't matter as long as there's film for it, it works, right? Same thing, as long as there's, let's be honest, the battery and everything, spare parts are pretty much across the board, regardless of which brand or whatever it is. But I think the bare bones nature of an Leica M camera makes it so that, sure, which is why I still have one, right? When you want something that's different than the eye detect, IBIS, this is that crazy technology, and it's just like you want to go back to like the purest form or nostalgia, again, similar to the M6. I feel like a digital M is probably the only digital camera that I think that you'll kind of expect that, hey, it's not going to have the best sensor or best performance. It's not going to have this tech because it doesn't have it now. It doesn't have it now when it's a current camera.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right? So yes, you won't get the the dynamic range, everything that the newer cameras have. That's to be expected. But I think you made a good point. Like your X100 versus the X100F or the V, the main differences were faster processor and things like that, right? And more technology. What's the difference between this M10 that's on my desk now that nobody can see and an M240 or an M9 besides form factor stuff, right?
Dynamic range, color, the way it looks.
Yeah. But using it is the same. Yeah, but using it is the same, right? Like there's you get no real, and this is the argument people make. I feel it's not as much.
The M10 has much better high ISO performance.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look at the M10R.
Yeah, but he's talking about like the shooting experience.
Yeah, but
that's what you're talking about, Mark?
Yeah, more so that like you're not gaining enough on the tech side between the different M cameras, I think, that make it feel like, oh my God, this is so obsolete. Like, I think if I'd started out with an M9, I would have probably just been like, all right, cool. I mean, even right now, like M10Rs are out, and I'm like, I don't really care.
Well, I mean, you put it that way, and I mean, you have a point. Ben Heisch, who is a well-known wedding photographer from the Pacific Northwest, he has been shooting Leica for a long time. And he was shooting with M9s up until I'm pretty sure he just sold his last M9 this year.
I think he had 240s.
To switch maybe.
It was 240s.
Yeah. And he just switched over to M10s this year. I mean, I've had my M10 for 3 years already. You know what I mean? So like, huh?
Like what I said earlier, like the M9, when you originally bought it, like having it 10 years later doesn't make it any worse. But the M9 really can't shoot over like 800 ISO. It really can't. Like it completely falls apart, which was fine when it came out, and it's still just as good today. But you also have other cameras going to 6400, it's 12,000 something. Like you're going to feel limited by this M9.
Right.
It's not any worse.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I don't know, man.
You're right. I mean, I think there will always be better performance, but I think what goes into that performance is another thing. Like I'm going to use a really random example. A Honda Civic, right, has pretty much been the same. Like, yes, you add things that are like more with the time, like you get backup cameras and stuff like that, but it's still a Honda Civic. Like you get it for that purpose of getting an economical vehicle. And the other stuff
want a Honda Civic without CarPlay.
But that's a perfect example though. That's a perfect example, and it's ironic because I did get the M10 because of the Wi-Fi support, right? And I think all right. So I'm seeing your point a little bit because it's making a lot of sense. All right. Let me rephrase my point on that. I don't think it's with an M because of the design philosophy behind it. I don't think it's as drastic as going from like Canon 5D, classic, to a 5D Mark IV, or even the X100T to an X100V, right? I think this is probably down to like Leica's philosophy on the M. It's funny you mentioned this because I saw something on Reddit and I was like, that's probably the one thing that would change it. If Leica decided they're going to do like a hybrid viewfinder thing, like the way the X Pro 2 and X Pro 3 has, where you have the optical viewfinder if you want to do rangefinder coupled with focusing, but will also give you an electronic viewfinder that pops up and then gives you a focus peaking. If they do that, I'm like, okay, take my money. That's it. Take my money.
Yeah, but now you're back to the upgrade cycle because EVFs are getting better and better every single year. Mm-hmm. So, all right, I disagree with Christian's answer. Like the Q to me will never be a forever camera, even though it's like great camera. It's still a technology-based camera. Like right now, it doesn't have phase detect autofocus. Like if they put that in, the autofocus on
Q2 does.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, they're both contrast detect only. If they put in,
it has face body detect.
No, not face. Phase.
PHASE.
Got it. Yeah. So, you were right about that. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? It's right here.
So they put that in, it gets like
you're right.
Or like Sony cameras have like animal detect and stuff like that. Like that's all progressing. The M's, like Mark said, won't. It's as fast as you can focus a camera. It'll never have autofocus, so the focus can't get any better than what it currently is. But they still have, much to Christian's dismay in the past couple of weeks, the dynamic range on color Leicas still kind of sucks compared to everything else on the market.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So we get to the monochrome. The original M9 monochrome CCD sensor, which on color was good to like 800 ISO, was good to like 6400 or maybe 12 something on the monochrome. The 240 was amazing, probably up to like 12,000 also. When the actual the color 240 was that 3200 is destroyed.
Yeah.
The current M monochrome, I think it goes to like 100,000 ISO.
Yeah, some ungodly, man.
Yeah, and it still looks great. Yeah, maybe the next one, M11 monochrome might go to 200,000, but at that point, like, it's a marginal gain. Like, you don't really need to go over 100. You don't need to go over 12,000, 50,000.
I've never in my professional life as a photographer, and I shoot in the dark a lot, ever have gone over 6400 ISO. Yeah. And 6400 when I'm and I've only gone to 6400 on my SL2 or my Q2 when I'm shooting at like 1/40th of a second, because the IS is so good on those Leica cameras that like you can shoot handheld at 1/20th, 1/30th, 1/40th, and have something be literally perfectly in focus.
Yeah.
So with and at that point, I'm just basically making nighttime look like daytime. If I'm at 6400 2.0 on my Summicron SL Apo and 1/30th or 1/40th, I mean, at that point, literally, if it's dark in front of me, it's going to be like look like daytime almost.
Right. So imagine if you have 100,000 available and it still looks good enough. So once you get to the M10 monochrome, which is the same size as an M6 TTL or an M7, it's already like the ideal size. They might make it smaller in the future. I don't see it getting any smaller than what it currently is.
I wouldn't even want them to do that because I mean,
Well, I'm gonna give a hot take here. So I think circling back to the question was, can there be I guess a modern or any digital camera that could be like a forever camera, as far as like, something you could have forever? I think the short answer is no, because by the nature of how they are. And, we look at the M6, I think we look the M6 is a forever camera because of, like, again, the design philosophy behind it, meaning, the Leica rangefinder, how it is, and the fact that it's film and a medium. And I think that's what the big thing is, that the medium changed, right? Because think about it. The same thing happened with camera technology. Leicas are based on a very old, technology, if you will, right, for using a camera. Like, they have film cameras that do, burst speeds and, whatever, all this crazy stuff. Like, the technology, even in film, was still there. So what I think happened is that the medium changed and we went to digital sensors. So the entire thing just stopped. So it's like, which of these is like least obsolete? And then you go back to the whole parts thing where, hey, can you get parts? How simple is it? Because all those other things have electronic parts that never end up breaking. If we're talking in digital cameras, they all share the same problems. And that's why, going back to like my, I guess, answer on that is that I think a digital Leica is the only thing, because there's less, just a bit less, and the design philosophy is a little bit more simple, to where you're probably not going to get these massive leaps and bounds from, what's the timeline between an M240 and M10, or an M10 to the M10R? It's like 5 years plus, right? You just don't have that same cycle because of the design philosophy behind the, Leica in general, and also the end. So that's kind of my take on it all, to bring it all up.
But like the monochrome part is like, it already resolves like a medium format sensor. How much better can they actually make the standard full frame sensor? And Leica's not going to go to medium format, because now your M lenses are useless. So they're kind of stuck with that size sensor if they want to continue being an M. The resolution is there. The color science is there because it doesn't exist. Like, it's never going to get any better color wise. The focus is never going to get any better. It doesn't need a faster burst mode. The M10M might be peak Leica. Anything after that is just little marginal gains that I could be wrong. They might come out with a sensor next year that goes to $500.
I think the only thing they could add to it is honestly is image stabilization, and that would be kind of difficult because of the size of the camera, to keep the size of the camera. And not just that, but then none of the lenses have IS, so you're still not getting that full IS performance.
Like, it'd still be better,
but you don't.
But I think
you have
I really wish that
ISO available.
But it's different, dude. It's different. It's different to be able to shoot at ISO 100.
Look up the monochrome.
People 1/20th of a freaking second handheld. The first time I ever used the SL2 at the Leica store in Miami, Josh Lear and I were playing around with it, and he's like, dude, see how far down you can go just shooting handheld without getting camera shake. I shot that thing at 1/6 of a second.
Yeah.
And with like literally, I wasn't shooting a person. I was shooting like an object, like a still object, but where it was perfectly in focus. Like,
but you're kind of missing the appeal of the monochrome. People a lot of people on the auto ISO set the base ISO to like 3200 because they don't want the image to be that clean. They want a little bit of grain to it.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
On the monochrome, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's black and white. You don't need that.
Well, here's the other thing. And I think your reason for saying the monochrome is different than I think the way we're evaluating it. The monochrome, by nature of being black and white, I think, takes advantage of that because some of those things don't matter. Going back to the ISO discussion, the ISO is important because, shutter speed, right? I mean, sure, you have IBIS or whatever, and you can shoot at 1/6 of a second, but if I'm shooting moving objects, then no, I can't do that, right? So I'd rather have the ISO performance where it's like, I'll still get the freeze motion if I need to, if that's what I need to do, and keep the shutter speed high, right? I mean, imagine like shoot photography at night now, right? Shooting 100,000 ISO at 1/250th of a second and whatever at nighttime, like that would look, and if it's clean enough, that's bananas. So I think that approach is, or that way of thinking about it is different. But I think Yanni talked about the monochrome being like possibly the the last camera you're going to buy thing, or like one that will last you a lot longer. I think that's mainly because of the niche factor of it, like because it is what it is.
Sorry, let me interrupt you for 1 second. Mm-hmm. It's not the last camera you need to buy. It's a camera you don't have to replace. It's obviously it's a monochrome. Like that can't be your only camera. That's ridiculous.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
but it's a camera you could pick up in 10 years from now, and you'll
tell Alan Shallow that. Alan Shallow said we talked about. But
I wonder.
yeah.
I wonder what Alan Schaller thinks about the Q2 monochrome.
I don't know. I mean, he shoots
he'll
pretty
use
wide
it?
a lot. Like he shoots like really wide. I mean, what is it?
Yeah,
24?
24.
Yeah. So I mean, he might like it. I mean, I haven't seen him post anything about it. You would assume that the way these, YouTube and Instagram celebrities are, they probably like, I find it funny, by the way, just as, side note for a second. I find it funny that whenever like cameras drop nowadays, it doesn't matter from who. And I'm surprised it actually just happened with like it drops and like everybody has a review of this thing. Like everybody has touched this camera already. And like it's not even like that like uncommon anymore. Like everybody has touched this thing. Matt Day posted one, a bunch of random people.
Very offended
It's
that
like
Leica has not sent me anything.
Yeah.
The
very offended.
Full blogger or whatever that website is.
Yeah. I hate saying
posted
that
on Reddit. He posted on Reddit like, "Oh, I've been using it for like about the past month and a half or something. Here are my views." Like, what? You've had this thing for a month and a half?
Yeah, that's what Matt Day said too.
Yeah. It's like, come on, guys. Yeah, but Matt Day's Matt Day. This guy's like some guy with a blog.
Yeah.
He's the blogger.
Yeah. With his built-in CPL.
Dude, well, I agree with you, man. I think you're right about the monochrome, the M10 monochrome. It's just peak pretty much anything. Now, can I ask the question? Is there a color version of this camera that you speak
that's
of
what I was gonna think.
No.
Yeah.
Retire? I don't think so. Yeah. I think color is just going to keep getting better and better. And I think that ISO performance is going to keep getting better and better. And what I don't see getting too much better is lenses. Like how much better can you get than my Summicron SL Apple?
They have to get better. Your Summicron probably tops out like resolving power, maybe like around 40 something megapixel. Once cameras get to 100 megapixel, if they can, it's not going to be there anymore.
No, I think actually, homie, what's his name from Leica, the guy who designs the cameras, Peter Karb. He talks about how exactly he said the opposite of what you just said, basically, where these lenses are made to like progress and shoot on like for cameras that are going to be made from 5-10 years from now.
Because I know like the V2 lenses, like Mark has the V2 Summicron. Apparently the V2s came around to have more resolving power for the higher megapixel cameras.
Yeah. Well, that might be so, and this is just, again, a thought that I don't have any proof of this. That might be due to it being M mount, because the way I think about it is this: you have a mount that's been around for fucking ever, right? Like, at what point does the mount and the form factor and the design of the lens, like, physical parts of it, become the limiting factor, right? I mean, think about it. Leica M has kind of looked the same for a long time. Sure, it's all just, glass pointing, in front of a sensor, but how much of that is limiting, or how much of it do they kind of have to like internally like think, shit, how are we going to make this work within this small barrel to keep it small, right? And not do these other things, or, make it super heavy. I feel like that's probably more limiting factor than anything else, where like, as an example, Sony lenses or anything, some of these Sigma lenses that are fucking cannons in front of the camera, but they're optically ridiculous from what I've heard,
Which is probably also the problem with the IBIS. Like if you look at the Fuji lenses, like a Fuji camera that has IBIS, not every single lens has the same number of stops improvement rating. It depends on the actual size of the image circle. So when you have this M mount lens, which has the image circle has to be small by design because the lens is small, compared to like the Nikon Z, which I think it's either the Z or the R or the Canon R. One of those two, like their big selling point was, look at the size of our mount. This mount is massive.
Yeah, I think it was the Nikon. I remember that. Yeah, there was a big thing about it, like the flange distance and this is that and everything like that. So
at that point, the M lenses will eventually be limited by the size of the lens, like how much.
Yeah, it'll be a physics thing.
Eventually, but I don't think that they're there right now.
No, they're not there now.
Yeah.
But once we get to like 100 megapixels or more, if it even happens, can you fit that many pixels onto a full frame sensor? Like, who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so that goes back
to become a medium format sensor.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. Is like, are we going to be using sensors in the way we do, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Because like I said, the Leica M6 as an example, or even, you know, let's take the most modern film M and M7, right? They were cameras that had a lot more technology in them, right? They have, you know, freaking, you know, what, multi-frame per second film cameras, and, you know, so the technology was there even in the film world. What happened is the media basically changed, the medium, sorry, right, to go digital. And yes, that lagged behind for a while, but now there's no more development of film cameras. And then I think you kind of realize where these different cameras have kind of solidified their place, if you will, right? You know, we said M6 is probably like a forever camera, or, you know, some people say other M cameras, but it kind of makes sense. So the question to me is like, we're having this conversation now because we're used to the paradigm of, you know, crop sensor, full frame sensor, medium format. What if, you know, in 10 years we have, I don't know, I can't even think, some other just random technology, just not what we're used to.
Well,
how does that change the story?
Actually,
you know?
I just thought of something, and what I think they could possibly do is something similar to what they've done with the SL2, where you can take a 180 megapixel like a shot, right? They're just gonna have to find a way to do that in one click instead of like.
So they already have. So have you seen the new Osmo Pocket 2, the little gimbal from DJI?
Yeah.
It has a tiny little sensor with 64 megapixels on it.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently what it does when you take a...
Holy shit. Didn't know that.
Explain it to me on Reddit, and I went over my head, but apparently it has it's normally a 16 megapixel sensor, but it has like, the grid has like other pixels around those pixels, and
like it's like a pixel shift thing. It's the same thing with
the SL. It does it in one shot.
Yeah, I know. So
one
the
shot,
SL does 64.
it.
The SL2 does it in one shot. The only thing is that you have to be on a tripod.
The SL2 is actually
it moves it.
It's moving the sensor around.
Yeah.
This isn't shifting anything. This is one sensor that all of a sudden, like, I guess, lights up every single resistor on it and gets a 64 megapixel shot.
That's wild.
Crazy.
That is wild. Yeah.
Well, then there's your answer, Mark.
There you go. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's some technology we haven't thought about yet, you know? And I think at that point we might have that conversation again. It's like, oh yeah, well, since we got stuck with, you know, what we have today, is it the M10R? Is it the M10N? Is it, you know, an SL2? You know, is it the Fuji camera? Is it a GFX? Is what's the best camera, right? It might be the GFX because, hey, you know what? These new sensors, whatever, do all this stuff here, but I really like, you know, the medium format look, right? That's really what it was about. Because I think that's basically what it is, right? We say the M6 because it's like, yes, I mean, why is film still relevant, right? I mean, everything about digitals is
because
objectively better. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right?
So
we can look back and
it's not going to be as clean as a digital file, but it's the pinnacle of film. Like, that's it. So maybe like the M10M is pinnacle digital. Like, anything higher than that, like, doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah. Like, well, so that's my point. I was like, I don't think we'll be able to know the answer to that question until like
maybe there'll be a new shutter technology or a new sensor technology that comes out, but this is the peak of the full frame sensor. So in 20 years from now, like, there's not going to be a better full frame sensor around.
We shall see.
Interesting. I don't know
well, for now, yeah.
for now, I'm gonna need that M10 monochrome. Like, where you at, son? Hit me up.
Yeah. Well, you need a Q2 things. Monochrome. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sticking to monochrome, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't take you for an M10 a monochrome guy. I think more.
Dude,
you want like
I actually get more comments on my work about how much people love my black and whites, like constantly, almost weekly. I get a comment about my black and white work verbally from my clients, and over time, like the more time has passed, I've edited less and less photos in black and white, because I will have the occasional client that will ask, like, I'll deliver a gallery and it will be like 70-30, right? Color to black and white. And then they'll ask me and like email me like 3 or 4 black and white pictures, like, can you make these color? And it's like, it just got annoying. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make everything color and only a few black and whites. But people make so many comments about it, and my wife gets mad at me. She's like, you need to make more black and white even. And she's like, we should even offer like shooting an entire wedding in black and white. And I was like, I mean,
you know, it reminds me of my so the Instagram account that I have for the kids, like, you know, it's pure black and white only. Like every photo there is posted black and white. Every time my parents look at it, or like my grandma, she's like, but can you do it in colors? Like, you know, like you think about it, like they're old. They probably grew up looking at black and white.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
They're like, why would you want this black and white stuff? Yeah, like, you know, everything's in color. Like that's what it is. You know, like it's perspective.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
I think over time, and this is another reason why I've delivered less black and white, is because I started seeing composition in color instead of like just composition in subject matter. Does that make sense? Where like I will see certain patterns in color in a frame, and I'd be like, oh my god, this frame makes sense because it's the color in here and here and whatever. And then instead of looking at it like, oh well, this person is here, this person's here, and like rule of thirds and blah blah blah, whatever. So because of that, I have learned to like color more. Funny fact, when I bought my very first Leica, I bought an M3 double stroke with a 50 Summicron rigid. I wanted to buy that camera specifically to only shoot at black and white in film. And I just never, like, as soon as I started seeing color film, I was like, fuck black and white. Like, yeah, it was, I don't know. But now it's like coming full circle where it's like I'm seeing the value in black and white and why I should be delivering more black and white and posting more black and white for sure. We also get a lot of interaction with our black and white posts as opposed to the color stuff.
It's different, especially for like wedding work and stuff like that.
It just makes it more timeless in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is realistically like my number one goal when I shoot weddings is to make the photos as timeless as possible.
It also makes the subject of the photo the subject of the photo, like not the colors or whatever is around them.
Right.
Yeah. I remember when I don't remember if I asked for your opinion on it, or maybe I just told you, I was like, the reason I did the kids account black and white is because like I felt like, you know, they're kids, right? And these are like candid pictures, so like the environment could be messy as hell with toys all over the place, and you know the toys are all kitty colored and everything like that, or whatever, right? It could be in the grass, and like the black and white keeps the focus on like the moment and like the feeling. So there's a lot more that you get out of that, even if there's like a busy background, even if there's toys all over the place. So you know, I like that about black and white. And the other thing I like about black and white, which I've actually like, I can't commit to it because if I see good color, like I like it. I can't see it as well, you know, or like, you know, it's not like I have like I don't feel like I do. I have the compositional skills to like put like lots of different colors together and make it look really compelling. But I feel like whenever I see a striking black and white photo, like from like Alan Schaller or some of these people I follow, like Mark Fearnley or whatever, like it sticks with me. Like I actually prefer their work over some color work sometimes, like, you know, where there's a lot of color where people are using and putting colors together. Like a striking black and white image just kind of does it for me. Like, you know, it and it's interesting because like I don't see myself as like somebody who really likes black and white, but I just don't think I could commit myself to do it. And it's funny, this week specifically, you know, since it's been so gloomy outside and everything, I was like, man, like, you know, there hasn't been anything bright or colorful really to take pictures of, even outside the house. And I was like, I wonder if I should just start shooting some stuff in black and white to kind of, you know, inspire me a bit, right? Because I'm just, you know, not inspired by the gloominess and the dullness that is the weather that we've had. So just a thought.
Hopefully the weather picks up and we got some sun and we get to start taking better shots.
I need the weather to pick up. I really need the rain to stop.
Yep.
For real. It's hurting my pocket. It's hurting my heart.
It's like raining on Christian's wedding days.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly correct. That is exactly
all right, guys.
Correct.
Well, hopefully we get out of this horrible weather and everything picks up for all of us. Hopefully we'll also see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll do next week.
More delays. Sure. We'll try not to be more delayed.
I don't have any travel planned until like around Christmas, so I'll be here for a few weeks.
I'm never traveling again, so
yeah. 2021, guys.
I'd literally rather get COVID than not travel again.
Later, guys. See you all next week.
Cool.